Hello, my lovely friends. This is Gypsy Spirit here, talking to you about the new year, 2026. Can you believe it is 2026? Oh my gosh. Who would have thought? If you're my age, I'm 64. Who would have thought that we would see 2026? We were shocked when we saw 2000. But wow, we're here, we're alive, everything is great. But I get a lot of people in my TikTok live stream. They come on and they want to know if they have made the right decision cutting somebody off or cutting especially their families. I get a lot of people like, I've cut my family off. Did I make the right decision? So forth and so on. And yeah, I get it because I've had to do the same thing in the past. But here we are in 2026. Oh, the other thing that I get a lot right now, especially, is should I tell so and so that I'm sorry? Or should I tell so and so Merry Christmas? Maybe, I get a lot of girls who maybe split up with their old boyfriends or whatever, and they want to know if they should tell them, at least Merry Christmas, you know. And or even friends, that they had a falling out with, they're wondering if should I wish them Merry Christmas? And I say yes, yes, because you don't know, this might be the last Christmas you ever get to know them on this planet. Start the 2026, the new year, letting bygones be bygones and start fresh. Don't have any hatred or animosity towards anybody. Start 2026 off right, you know? And yes, wish your friends and family and those that you've had that falling out with, don't be bashful, just wish them Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays. I'll tell you a story. I went to see Paul McCartney, I don't know, 2019. It was before COVID. And I paid a lot of money for that ticket. A lot of money. That was the most expensive concert I've ever been to. But you know what? If he was coming back close to where I'm at, I'd pay that money all over again. That is how good he was. It was great. But anyway, back to the story. It came time for him to do tribute. He did a tribute to George Harrison, to his first wife, Linda, who passed away from cancer. And he got to John Lennon, and he told a story. It was a beautiful tribute. I mean, he had written a beautiful song for John, but and if I didn't get anything out of Paul McCartney's concert that night, I got this, and I will go to my grave with it. He said, you know how it is when you're talking to an old friend, and you're just caught up in conversation, and while you're talking, you think of a compliment to give to them, but you're so caught up in conversation that you forget to tell them the compliment or whatever the good thing that you wanted to say to them about them, and you part ways and you're walking away and you think, oh, I forgot to tell them that, I'll tell them when I see them again. And Paul McCartney said, tell them immediately, call them, whatever, because you don't know if you're ever going to see them again. He had made his peace with John Lennon just before John was brutally murdered. But, and I was so glad to hear that, because I have my dad who passed away 4 years ago, and he had dementia. And he had dementia for a long time, but it didn't really kick in until about the last year of his life. But anyway, my dad and we had a rocky relationship. We loved each other, but we lived totally different lives and thought differently. So we would go times without seeing each other, talking, and but we were on a good ride at this time after I had gone to that concert. And something told me that I needed to call him and tell them that he was a good dad. So I did. And this was his dementia. He knew who I was. He knew. The dementia had not taken his memory completely away at this point. And I called him up and I told him that I said, I just want to let you know that you've been a good dad and I appreciate it. And he thought I needed money. And I told him, I said, no, I don't need anything. I'm good. I just want to let you know I love you. And you've been a really good dad. And he said, well, I appreciate that. And then when his dementia kicked in several years later, and I will tell you, right after I told him that, it was months later, we had fallen out, and I didn't talk to him for 3 years. Didn't mean I didn't love him or think about, I cried all the time because I thought about him all the time, and I lived only 10 minutes away from him. But he could say some mean things, and maybe that was the dementia, the kicking in, I don't know. But towards the end, he didn't know who I was, and I would see him every day, and I would have to tell him 100 times a day who I was. And he would say to me, I would say, I'm Lisa, I'm your daughter. And he would say, I got a daughter? I'd say, yeah, I'm 61. He'd be like, I'll be damned. Who's your mother? And so I would tell him who my mom was, and then he would always ask me, well, was I good? Was I good to you? And I'd say, oh yeah, you were great. And he'd say, no, did I ever beat you? And I'd say, oh no, you never. So anyway, the point is, don't let 2026 go by without wishing somebody well, even if you've had an argument with them or whatever, because you don't ever know if you're going to see them again. And start 2026 fresh with no animosity or anger in your heart. Just let it go. You'll thank me later. And I know somebody else that you care for, a friend of yours, needs to hear this. Don't be shy. Share it with them. And I'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.